There was this comment that one of you guys posted in one of my earlier videos where someone was like, you either die a flagship killer or you live long enough to become the flagship. And at the time I thought it was a pretty funny joke, but that phrase is a remarkably accurate depiction of what we have today. The OnePlus 8 Pro is a full-blown flagship. Like, we're talking IP certified water resistance, wireless charging, a very flagship camera. We'll get into that a little bit, but this is... It's a flagship, a really good one, but it's also equipped with flagship pricing. This is now a $900 smartphone. The base price for the OnePlus 8 Pro is $900. And I mean, there's a lot to be discussed here, but okay. I'm gonna start this video off with, let's do it like this. I think anyone who's interested in a OnePlus 8 Pro is probably interested in a Galaxy S20 or an S20 Plus because they have a lot of things in common between them. The big one for me are the displays. They both have these fantastic 120 Hz panels. The OnePlus 8 Pro has a 1440p panel. It's super bright, super color accurate. It's a top tier display. Visually, I'd put it on par with the S20 Plus. It really is that good. It's honestly strange to me that OnePlus is able to get these displays, like a smaller company like this is able to get displays that is better than like the vast majority of smartphones out there, but it really is like a kick-ass 120 Hz panel. Now, I can personally tell the difference between the 120 Hz panel and the 90 Hz panel from last year's OnePlus 7 Pro, but I have to look for it. Now, maybe I'm sensitive to it. Like, I play a lot of games at high refresh rates. Like, I go for that stuff, but I have to look for it, right? It doesn't like jump out immediately as being better, like the 120 over the 90. There is a big difference between 60 and 90, but if you are someone who's fortunate enough to have a device that does have a 90 Hz panel, don't let that 120 Hz jump be the main reason why purchasing this. Like, it is noticeable if you look for it. The other thing is like, it's refresh rate on a phone, right? This isn't like competitive Reddit browsing. You don't need that tactical advantage of a 120 Hz screen. It's nice, it's slightly easier on the eyes, but for the people that just haven't experienced it ever, it's not the most important feature in the world. It's just nice to have. The performance is amazing, as you would expect from a Snapdragon 865 with UFS 3 storage and the LP DDR5X memory. It really is a crazy fast phone. There is a chip inside the OnePlus 8 Pro from a company called Pixelworks, which helps to amp up the visual experience. So it does stuff like color calibration and upscaling content to HDR quality content, but it's got this neat feature called motion smoothing, which can reduce any kind of motion blur or visual judders in certain types of videos. Now, the front of this camera does not have the pop-up camera like the OnePlus 7 Pro. It's got a hole punch camera, and I don't mind it. Like, I thought I would care because I spent an entire year on a phone with no front anything, no notch, no bezel, no camera, and this hole punch I thought would just be like an eyesore. I don't mind it at all. Now, I don't think this is like the end stage of front-facing cameras. I do think that the under-display cameras will be appearing soon. Like, we've seen rumors of that tech appearing like the Note 20 from Samsung later this year, so I wouldn't be surprised if OnePlus picks up that tech in the next year, maybe even less, but in its current state, it already looks fine to me. It's got super fast face unlock, super fast fingerprint unlock. It still has a curved edge. I've talked about this in plenty of my videos, but the S20 series this year, they kind of reduced the curvature on their edge, so it's not as easy to get misclicks and accidental swipes, but the OnePlus 8 Pro still has a pretty big curve on that edge. Now, one of the easiest ways to combat this is to have a case. They include a clear one with the OnePlus 8 Pro. It's got never settle, kind of like frosted in the back, so you can show off that never settling, if you can see that, while you rock it. But it does help with accidental clicks on this device. Now, I normally don't cover cases on this channel, but I got to on this one. In the media kit, these things came in. Like, look at the color. You think this channel is gonna get these cases and not talk about them? I mean, come on, dude. These are like the most 2D cases I've ever seen. Like, the color is perfectly teal. It's got the OnePlus sandstone texture to it, so if you want that kind of textured grip, it has that. It also is slightly different in terms of design from the previous sandstone cases on OnePlus phones. So, I mean, this is just from long-term usage, but these cases tend to crack over time, like just on the edges, because they don't have a full bottom. It's kind of cut out. because these are built in a way to, I mean, they're just fully, it's a full case around the edge. So I think these will last longer without cracking like previous sandstone cases have. But there's also, I mean, I'm going into so much detail about these cases, but they're teal, they deserve it. It's got these lines in the design, and even after only a couple weeks of using these, they've become quite dirty. So I think that over time, these lines might become dark from use, but that's just the case. Okay, enough about these damn things. The phone itself. So this has a blue ultramarine color, and it is a very blue color. It comes in a green, also in the same kind of satin finish. I much prefer the visual appearance of that green over the blue. This is just super loud. It's just not my thing, but it's a very nice texture. It's got this smooth finish, and they've also matched the edges of the phone to have that same kind of smooth finish. There's another color variant that I have here. This is not an 8 Pro, but an 8. Notice I had to wipe it to get rid of the fingerprints, but this is called Interstellar Glow, and it's similar-ish to the Samsung's Aura Glow in the sense that it's like a reflective, polished finish. It's a different process though. This is more of like a pearlescent mirrored effect, whereas the Samsung material looks almost prismatic. There's 30-watt wireless charging on this, which is super fast, and I was able to get the advertised 50% in 30 minutes. I do find it a little bit warm to the touch, warmer than I'd like. Even warp charge, just the regular 30-watt warp charge, does make these devices warm, but it feels slightly warmer on the wireless charger, which could affect battery durability over time. Battery life is great on this device, so this is getting a comfortable 7 hours of screen on time. That's with 120 hertz, 1440p. Like that's just, right? If you drop the resolution or drop the refresh rate, you just get longer from there. But 7 hours of screen on time with everything turned up, that's a huge win in my books. Okay, speakers. So there are stereo speakers. They sound really good, but when I try to compare to the S20, I think that music sounds better on the OnePlus 8 Pro. I think movies sound better on the S20. I can't explain it. I feel like maybe they handle sound, like punchy sounds, a little bit better on the S20. And it's not just like bass or any kind of mid-tones or anything. It's just music sounds better on this, in my opinion. Movies and shows sound better on the S20. Take that for whatever you will. The haptics on this device are also improved. It feels more pingy now instead of like thumpy and buzzy. This, like the OnePlus 7 Pro already had pretty good haptics. I just like this better. It just feels sharper and more precise. Now the S20 this year, they also have improved haptics. I would say that the S20 vibration motor or haptic motor feels more robust. Like you can do more stuff with whatever mechanism they have in here. Like they've created sensations that when you take pictures, it feels like something's like rolling around in there really quickly. You don't get that with this. This is just more of like a cleaner, precise ping, which I personally like, but they're both good. Now I need to talk about the cameras because I think the camera on the OnePlus 8 Pro is probably the most important feature. First of all, it is huge. Like the camera bump on this thing sticks out like if I'm eyeballing like 3 millimeters. It's very large. It's like, bam. You looking for this? A ramp? Because I got a ramp for you. It's a very, very big camera bump, especially if you don't have a case on it. Now, I'm okay with the bump, the size of the bump, because this year, for the first time ever in OnePlus history, they have an excellent camera, like a truly excellent camera that can sit on the shelf with any of the top tier flagships. Because before this, every phone that has ever come out from OnePlus, the reviews are always the same. It's like, the camera system this year is good. It's really good for the price, but it can't compete with the top tier flagships. That's like the OnePlus story. It's what you guys have been hearing for years. It was what I've been saying for years. And it's probably what OnePlus has been hearing for years in the reviews. And they got sick of it. Quite frankly, this is an excellent camera. It's really good in daylight. It's sharp, great color, fast, like super fast shutter. The ultra-wide is on point. There's some color shift between the lenses, but it's better this year than last year. The 3x telephoto, I would say, is where these two cameras differ the most because the regular lens and the ultra-wide, they're both really good on the S20 and the OnePlus 8 Pro. But the 3x zoom, they both look great. I do prefer the images from the S20 though. It just has better contrast to me and the whole image looks a little bit cleaner. Now when you crank that up to a 30x digital zoom, they also have some differences. The Samsung looks cleaner. It's just way less noisy, but that software is potentially a little too aggressive because now you're losing detail that the OnePlus kept. It is noisier, but you can always denoise in post, but I'm not sure if you can regain the loss of detail. But let's be real here. We're talking about 30x digital zooms here. I don't know if people are going to be using it that often, but if that's super important to you, well, now you know the differences between them. The nighttime photos are also really good. All three lenses perform really well. Now, I do feel like OnePlus phones have a bit of an advantage for the type of low light shooting that I like to do. If you follow my channel, I shoot a lot of like nighttime landscapes, and the thing is, the low light feature in this phone is called Nightscape. So maybe the software is really good at just picking out architectural details and amplifying that stuff in low light, but they look so good on the OnePlus 8 Pro. They did an incredible job this year. I like the camera. For the first time ever, I can be like, it's an amazing camera. And it also has that super macro feature, so you can zoom in on things and see details that are both gross and really interesting at the same time. And the video function is also really good. Well stabilized, good autofocus, you're gonna like it. I'm gonna talk about the biggest difference between these phones, which is their software. Now, I'm someone that values the kind of clean nature of Oxygen OS. Like, I'm someone that doesn't even like I don't like text in my apps. You can tell that I'm gonna prefer something like this. I just like stuff as clean as possible. One UI is excellent. Like 2.0 looks so much better than it has in the past, but it still has redundant apps. Like the moment you have a Samsung browser and like Samsung Pay that's baked into the phone, it's not as clean as Oxygen OS, but they're both good. It's just that if you value like the most minimal, cleanest software experience possible, Oxygen OS on the OnePlus is gonna win. Okay, now let's talk about pricing. And that's, I think, where I'd like to close off this video. This is a $900 phone, which is so much more expensive than this was when it launched. This was a $670 phone, I think, when it launched, the OnePlus 7 Pro. This is $900, which is $230 more. Yeah, $230 more. My math isn't that great right now, but this is a huge jump up in price. Now, some of that pricing comes from the IP certification, and some of that price comes from like the wireless charging, I'm sure, but I think the biggest portion of that jump up in price is the camera. Like when you want to compete in the big leagues and you want to have cameras that can compete with iPhones and Samsungs and Pixels, you need the best lenses, the best sensors, and that stuff is crazy expensive. It's what we have. We have a really good overall package. In my opinion, this is the best flagship on the market right now for Android users, but the price tag is weird for OnePlus. Now, I think it was last year, I made a video entitled, I think it was called like the OnePlus we knew is dead or something like that. And basically it was just the story of how OnePlus had shifted very, very quickly over the years from a company that was very budget minded to a more premium device. Right now we're seeing extremely expensive flagships. This stuff it's flagship territory. Now, if you didn't, I think one of the problems that reviewers have when it comes to products like this, and it's not a problem, it's just something that we inherently it's the way we look at devices. We look at track record. We look at history. We have expectations of what products will be and what they should be, right? So imagine you didn't know anything about these phones, like these two. Let's say you had the S20 and the OnePlus 8 Pro. They didn't have any branding. There was no kind of association of history or expectations with these products. I think most people, just blind reviewers out there, would be like, this is the better phone. Empirically, objectively speaking, this is the better phone all around because it's faster, it's cheaper, everything about this is a better phone. But because this is a Samsung branded phone, we have expectations. And because this is a OnePlus branded phone, we also have expectations. We want this to be cheaper because at one point in time, this was really cheap. And at one point in time, this was the best camera system on Android phones. So that is the problem when it comes to reviewing stuff like this, because part of me wants to review this stuff completely objectively, without any bias, without any kind of any agenda. But I think it's gone to the point where we see OnePlus has shifted to a completely different space. We can no longer look at this brand as hey, I wish they were cheap. Hey, I wish they were, $600 phones at the top end. it's not going to be that way anymore. What they have made is, in my opinion, the best flagship. It's expensive, and it is what it is. Now, in this video, I did not talk about this phone, the OnePlus 8. I actually think this is the more important phone of the two. I think there's a way more important and interesting discussion to be had with this phone, but I didn't include it because it's going to be in a separate video. I'll probably drop it in 2 or 3 days. But stay tuned for that. I just feel like the OnePlus 8, it's the best flagship in Android right now, in my opinion. Okay, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thumbs if you liked it, subs if you loved it. I'll see you guys next time.